Hello there. We handed the European Union a P45 to end its job as Overlord to the UK. So what do? They send us a form to fill in to become mere tenants in our own country. Firstly, as ever, please kick that YouTube algorithm up the rear by giving this video a big fat like, and I'm always uploading new content, so please do check my YouTube channel daily. So, it might be just as well that there will be no travelling expenses for the Brexit trade talks next week after the face-to-face aspect of the meetings was called off yesterday. And why? Because the European Union has issued a 441-page draft Brexit treaty to the EU 27 member states, which has also fallen into the hands of at least the BBC and The Guardian. And as far as I can make out, this draft contains the same old stuff about level playing fields and ECJ oversight, etc., etc., etc. The Guardian reports, Britain will have to guarantee uniform implementation of Brussels state subsidy rules, while the European Court of Justice will hand down rulings to British courts under the EU's vision of the future relationship with the UK. And the BBC says, the draft legal text called the New Partnership between the European Union and the United Kingdom was drawn up by the European Commission. And it goes on to say that amongst a lot of blank pages, it contains proposals including a joint partnership council with 16 subcommittees, including one dedicated to the so-called level playing field. Level playing field proposals on competition, taxation, labour and social protection, and the environment. Long-term agreements over access to British waters for EU boats with annual negotiations. Cooperation on data exchange and extradition if the UK continues to implement the European Convention on Human Rights. Does all sound sort of vaguely familiar, doesn't it? And the EU chief Brexit negotiator Michel Barnier is quoted as saying that the text shows that an ambitious and comprehensive future relationship is possible. Sounds very much like the same sort of deal that we voted to leave in June 2016 and have spent nearly 4 years trying to extricate ourselves from. The one area that Brussels might have walked a teensy-weensy bit back on is on the issue of fishing, with The Guardian reporting that the previous terminology that the UK must uphold the Common Fisheries Policy, or CFP, in any new deal, has now been changed to a new position of following scientific advice and respecting the status quo. So I wonder whose scientific advice we would be expected to follow here. And what does respecting mean in legal terms? Is this change in wording designed to give Boris a get-out route of some sort? i.e., give Boris the chance to make a backroom deal with the EU to keep things as they are, but couch it all in less onerous-looking words? Just a thought, as I haven't seen much rowing back on anything else from Brussels yet. But I would say the chances of some quiet arrangement like that staying hidden for very long are very slim to vanishing. And reading the Guardian article on this, I would surmise that once he and his team see it, the UK Brexit negotiator David Frost will be gouging huge chunks out of it as totally unacceptable. Especially as it seems to be full of level playing field and subject to ECJ jurisdiction type talk. Everything that Brussels has proposed so far sounds to me less like a new trade deal with the European Union and more like a lengthy way of getting us to rejoin it. All they have to do is demand that the UK ties sterling to the euro and joins the Schengen zone, and Bob's your uncle. In fact, it would make the EU negotiators' job so much simpler if they just plonked a copy of Article 49 of the Lisbon Treaty on the table and said, "Just sign here." Article 49, of course, being the one that governs joining the EU as a full member, as opposed to the now very well-known Article 50 on leaving it. But joking aside, I'm really wondering what the European Union will look like this time next year. Will its member states really still be so wedded to open borders and hugely long supply chains snaking across the EU and beyond? Really? I'm thinking that there may well be a pushback against that approach, with many EU 27 countries starting to think that maybe a few border checks here and there, as well as more domestic production of certain items, might not be such a bad thing after all. And that would take quite a comprehensive rewrite of the European Union treaties to achieve, something the Eurocrats will fight tooth and nail against. Their livelihoods and power are on the line here, remember. For a Eurocrat, there is only ever one solution to any problem, whatever that problem is. More European Union, more open borders, more centralised control, and of course, more money for Brussels. Leaving the only and inevitable choice for those EU 27 member states that want a looser arrangement with the European Union. That of following the Brexit example. And in the end, some of them might choose that future, while one or two others may, in time, have it forced on them. And now for a complete change of tack. Many of you will be aware of the name Laurence Fox. That's the actor that appeared on Question Time a while back and caused a bit of a storm. I must admit I don't watch the programme anymore due to its left-wing anti-Brexit bias. But had I been gearing up to watch that particular edition, I would have thought, oh look, another lefty-lovey actor on the show, saints preserve us. But now I wished I had watched it as it was being broadcast, because what Laurence did and said that day started the shift of the whole free expression thing out from behind the left-wing barricades and onto more central ground. And the lefties who thought they owned free speech went into an absolute frazzle, because they had come to think that they not only defined free speech, but that they also controlled the concept of acceptable speech. So no sooner had the Fox eyeballs rolled in response to one of the audience members' claims that Meghan Markle had of course been subjected to racist attacks, than the so-called progressives rallied together to try and destroy him. This also included the Minority Ethnic Members Committee of the Actors Union Equity, which called Laurence Fox a disgrace. And after weeks of abuse on social media, Fox felt forced to go quiet for an easier life, despite getting a huge level of support. But what he did do was to force an out-of-court settlement and an apology from Equity, which then caused the resignation of all those members on the Equity Minority Ethnic Members Committee, which has recently been renamed to become the Equity Race Equality Committee. In their statement, Equity said, "We are sorry that in the tweets he was called a disgrace by Equity." So what are they saying? That they wished harsher words had been used? They also said, it was a mistake for Equity as an organisation to criticise him in this way. So once again, what do they mean? That they'd have preferred Fox to be criticised in a different way? Looking at those words, you could be forgiven for thinking that this was an apology extracted through tightly gritted teeth. Now, nothing that Laurence Fox said or did, as far as I can see, was unlawful in any way. What he did, though, was openly criticise and pull to pieces what the left thought was their unassailable stance on certain social issues. Now, the left was aghast, not just because of what he said, but also from the amount of support he received, and the fact they couldn't stop him no matter how much mud they slung at him. And when the news came out about the settlement, apology and resignations, boy, it was lefty screeching and blubbing all over the interweb. And the thing is that many of those who were aiming their bile at Fox became unhappy with Equity and are now being forced to expend half that hate on Equity. I wonder if Equity will ban and expel any of its own members that are involved in all this for hate speech. That would be a turn up for the book, wouldn't it? Anyway, while this has been going on, another person who got hounded out of jobs by the left, Toby Young, also hit back by starting a new campaign group called the Free Speech Union, or FSU. And as soon as the doors were open, I joined up. Now, the idea of the FSU is that if someone is targeted by a digital outrage mob just for the crime of exercising their right to free expression, then the FSU will mobilise an army of supporters to help them. Every move that free speech haters use to shut people down will be countered, including petitions, writing to employers and formal complaints, as well as where necessary doing its best to provide legal assistance. And as soon as this all came out, the lefties howled in anguish, claiming it was an organisation formed specifically to assist racists and bigots and worse, and all manner of other garbage. And the FSU arrives at a time when stories of deplatforming etc. seem to be escalating, with the sorry saga of the Labour Party and Mr Phillips being another example. Now, the concept of free expression being under attack is nothing new, but maybe the ground has shifted a bit. At one time it would be a governing entity that would use its soldiers and security services to prevent people gathering and plotting insurrection. But now we have small groups, each of which is keen on gaining for itself some sort of protected status, using victimhood, safe spaces, and even new laws to create itself a little fortress from which they can then attack the unarmed masses for having opinions that differ from their own. Well, actually, not for having different opinions, but more like not being slavish enough in their devout obedience to the wishes of those minorities. But each time a minority group succeeds in shutting down criticism, it erodes a little more of all our free speech. And from my observations, most of the pushes to put these minorities above the masses appear to emanate from the more left wing of our society. And it's a great way to divide and conquer while attempting to shape people's language and thoughts so as to make George Orwell's book 1984 a reality in the UK. Hence the huge snowflake meltdown currently occurring as they see their hard left anti-Brexit plans start to unwind. The Free Speech Union says in its statement of values, "The Free Speech Union stands for freedom of speech, of conscience and of intellectual inquiry, which we regard as the essential pillars of a free society, the foundational freedoms on which all others depend. We believe that human beings cannot flourish outside a free society, which means they cannot flourish in the absence of free speech." So you can understand exactly why those on the left who want to control every aspect of our lives have such a problem with free expression, can't you? Anyway, if you want to hear more from me, please don't forget to subscribe and also press that little bell, or you won't get any notifications. And if you want to see more of me, buy a mug with my mug on it. So what do you think about the current state of Brexit and of free speech? Please share and comment, and thank you for watching.